It's in Laos. It's in Cuba. It's in Vietnam. And they want to do all these things together at the same time. So how in the hell are you going to fight with all these places when we don't have enough troops to actually fight more than one battle? And even that is going to have to call up the reserves. And the answer is simple. We're not going to fight with ground forces. We're going to use nuclear weapons everywhere. It's Armageddon time. That's what they wanted. And we know because they briefed Kennedy on that back in July 1961, that that's what we needed to do, was a massive surprise attack on the Soviet Union. But don't do it till the fall of 63, because at that time we'll have the most ICBMs and they'll have nothing. It's when the very moment that we have the mostest and they have the leastest that we want to do this huge attack.
Can you walk us through this meeting? This was the PSYOP.
Yes, we can go back and look at that meeting.
Walk the audience, the people that are listening. Walk us through that meeting. Who you said it was in 61 in July. Where was it? Who was there? And what was the objective of that meeting?
Okay. The objective was to bring Kennedy on board for basically what I would call an Armageddon strike. They didn't think of it that way because they didn't realize it was going to blow the earth up. I mean, they did not understand what was going on with it. So I will take you back to that. This is the briefing given to him in July 1961.
The briefing. So he wasn't there?
He was there.
He was there.
It was the time for a PSYOP brief. Okay, that started in the Eisenhower administration. Eisenhower said, "Oh my God, this is terrible," but that's a different story. He was able to get through without having his generals push him around because he was a 5-star general, but not Kennedy.
Eisenhower was.
Yeah, that's right. So they were started that in late in the second Eisenhower administration.
And what does PSYOP stand for? It's SIOP, not psychological operation.
Strategic Integrated Operational Plan for Nuclear Warfare.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what it is.
Started during Eisenhower.
And here comes the first one for Kennedy in July 1961, July 20th to be precise. And so they tell him, and in fact, they should be briefing the 1962 PSYOP, but they're not. This is a special one because Kennedy's on his nadir. All right, the Bay of Pigs has happened. Khrushchev is pushing him around at the Vienna for to take Berlin back and things like that. And so they decide that he's at his weakest point. And so they thought now was the time to strike. And so they briefed him on this thing, on this massive PSYOP to take place in the fall of 1963. Fall of 1963. How many times do I have to say that? Right, the fall of 1963. And so Kennedy just gets up and walks out and says, and we call ourselves the human race. So that's a no-go, right? It's not going to happen. But guess what? In the fall of 1963, that idea is still alive.
And can you expand on the idea exactly? We wanted to send ICBMs to what countries?
The two main countries were the Soviet Union and China, which is a large part of the of the world. And there were other countries like Albania simply because it had Albania was in the Soviet orbit and they had big radars that the Soviets wanted to use for things. And so, and he was asked, Lemnitzer was asked about Albania and he just said, because they're in the plan. And then Kennedy asked him about, why about China? I don't see that China did attack us. And Lemnitzer was impudent. And he said, it's in the plan, sir. That's all he would say. He didn't answer the question. It's in the plan. That's how Lemnitzer was with him. He talked down to Kennedy all the time. Yeah, he did. He hated Kennedy. You want to see the evidence of that? This is a picture that tells 1,000 words. This is when he did not keep him on as chairman of the Joint Chiefs.
Like an evil fucking.
This is a dagger stare at Kennedy, and what is he doing? He's wincing. His eyes are almost shut. And look who's smirking in the background.
Taylor?
That's Taylor. He knows he's up next. He's on deck right now, and he gets.
What is going on in that photo?
He's being given his medal.
Okay.
Kennedy's giving him a medal and sending him over to Europe as the Supreme Allied Commander of Europe. And he's mad.
Because he lost his job as the
he wanted to stay on.
Chief,
because that's what he wanted to be around for the fireworks.
Was Johnson in that PSYOP meeting?
Yes, he was, actually. It was difficult for me to find. There are things by good people who've written books about Burris, who was Johnson's, LBJ's, supposedly his aide. He wasn't. He was his case officer. That's a whole other story. But anyway, so, yeah.
Johnson's case officer.
Yeah. But it was thought for a while that Johnson did not attend because he was drunk that morning. But he did, because I have the records that show he did attend that PSYOP briefing that morning. He did.
Do we know what his reaction to it was?
No.
How many people did they estimate would be killed by that nuclear attack? Did they have exact casualty, or did they have rough casualty estimations?
Yes, they did.
Did they estimate whether or not a potential ICBM could be sent back?
Well, they had, but their figures were not very good.
Right.
If you let Oppenheimer and Einstein tell you the figures, they would tell you it's not just what happens when the stuff blows up, which they were saying was about 60% of the Soviet population was going to die. But very quickly, the rest of everybody dies because of the radiation. It's fallout around the entire Earth.
Right.
And plants won't grow. Nothing will grow.
Right.
Unless it's underground far enough to not to be, the DNA to be killed. That's what LeMay wanted to drop 3 warheads on every target, just to be sure. 3 warheads on one target. Can you imagine that? These are hydrogen bombs, too. These are not.
Oh, hydrogen bombs.
Yes.
These are, like the hydrogen bombs are over 100 times more powerful than both of the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki combined.
And so here you go. You got 1,000 targets in the Soviet Union and 1,000 more than that in China, and you're going to drop three warheads on every one of those targets? You know?
No, it would completely destroy the atmosphere, and it would kill millions and millions of people. But here's the did they anticipate any retaliation? Because they have a system in place where they did
not expect it because there were no ICBMs. So the only retaliation that they had would be to send their big airplanes that could drop nuclear weapons on us.
Did they have submarines with nukes?
No, not at the time.
Okay.
They were working on it.
Okay.
We were the first, I think, with the Polaris missiles, and so we actually had those in a particular the Cuban Missile Crisis and then beyond.